Welcome everybody to our fifth installment of our land development lunchtime series. Not going to waste anybody's time too much longer because we're getting a little bit of a late start, and I'm going to throw it over to the architect and creator of our series, Mr. David Thaler of DS Thaler and Associates. David?
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have been upgraded to an architect. Welcome everybody back to this, our sixth installment in this year's land development course. I want to give a special welcome to an old friend. Peggy White is signed in. I want to welcome her back to MBIA. She's now the Director of Civil Engineering for Kim Engineering. Welcome to everybody. Now, we've been talking about land development. And the whole purpose of land development is to create finished or developed lots, and we sell to a builder in almost all cases. And the lion's share of finished lots go to the national merchant builders. And the largest national merchant builder in the country is the Lennar Corporation. And we're very pleased to have two outstanding land development professionals from Lennar with us today. Lennar, as you probably know, is a home builder and real estate company based in Florida. And it is, although it varies a little bit, I believe as of today, it's the largest home builder in the United States, especially after its purchase of Cal Atlantic Homes. And it operates in an incredible 21 states. We have two, we're really very lucky to have two very special people who are highly experienced in the field of land development. First up is Jeff Minnick. He has worked with the National Home Builders for more than 18 years with a primary focus on land acquisition. He was born and raised in Maryland and interned with K. Hovenian Homes during his college years and worked for KHOV for 8 years. He started with Lennar in 2010 as a senior land acquisition manager and was quickly promoted to vice president of land acquisition for Maryland and Delaware, overseeing all acquisition efforts in Maryland, Southern Delaware, and Central PA. He was then promoted to senior vice president of acquisition for the Mid-Atlantic, and he heads the acquisition efforts for Maryland, Southern Delaware, Central PA, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. We're very pleased to have our other speaker today. He's truly a graduate of this course, having attended our 5 prior annual sessions, and that's Matt Destino. He graduated from Virginia Tech in 2006. He's a professional engineer, and he began his career with various consulting engineering firms in Florida and Virginia before coming back to Maryland in 2010. For the past 5 years, Matt has worked with Lennar, first as a land planning and entitlement manager, and he was recently promoted to the director of land development for the Maryland division, including Southern Delaware and Central PA. He has been very active in the acquisition, entitlement development, and forward planning of Lennar's many communities within that area. So we're really honored to have them today. Please welcome Jeff Minnick and Matt Destino from Lennar Corporation. Back to you, gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. David gave a great introduction there, so I don't know that I need to recap everything from my perspective.
You're on mute, Matt. Or no, you're not.
Sorry. So I don't know that I need to recap everything from that perspective, but as David has said, I've worked with Lennar here for 11 years. Matt, if you could pull up our PowerPoint or just the bullet point list of kind of the agenda of things to discuss today, I'd appreciate it. And I'll give you kind of a breakdown of who Lennar is, what we're up to, and I'll kind of drill down of what we're doing in this area, what we're looking for, and so forth, what types of deals make sense for us. We'll go through a variety of things today. And David, please feel free to interrupt with any questions that you may have. And Matt, like we discussed, please jump in whenever you need to, so we can kind of get all of our thoughts out on the board. So like David said, Lennar's either number 1 or number 2 in the nation, depending on which way the wind's blowing. It's really between us and D.R. Horton at any given point in time. We have a substantial amount of money to buy ground. We are very deal hungry. We're all deal junkies. That's from every level of the company, executives down. And we're always looking for new solid land opportunities. So we're going to focus in kind of on the Maryland and Virginia territories today. That's our primary focus. As David had introduced me, I kind of oversee all of Virginia and the Maryland and Delaware territories. And let's talk for a second about what separates Lennar from other national home builders. Why choose us? And we can kind of get into detail there. I'll tell you, and we'll talk about the different variety of deal structures that we'll engage. And that really is what separates us from other national home builders, right? We will do a variety of different deals where other builders may focus with inside a box and do finished lot opportunities, et cetera. We will do a number of different structures. Really, what structure makes sense for us and the developer so that we both make a profit is where our head is ultimately at. We also obviously have a very strong balance sheet. There's no fear of ever losing us as a partner. And we try to structure our deals that way. We're not going anywhere. We understand the partnership and relationship is everything in this business. I probably know most of everyone on this call. And if you beat down the street, you're going to learn that Lennar lives up to what we say we're going to do. We're a good group to work with. And generally the people speaking on this call right now, you're engaged with daily once those deals are struck. So we're never going away. We're never passing off the deal to somebody else where you lose sight of that from a corporate standpoint. We're always involved. And I think that's what separates us from the pack. As we move down here, we're going to get into territories covered by our Land Act team. Let's talk about that for a second. David kind of hit it on a high level. Generally, I'm focused south through Southern Virginia, all the way down to Williamsburg, north through Bel Air, west through West Virginia, Morgantown, and anywhere out in West Virginia that makes sense, east to Wacomico, Worcester, and Sussex County. So what's our primary focus? Anything around the Beltway, anything 5 miles outside of the beach, anything we'll go into Southern Virginia. Richmond's a hot market now. So where people want to live, where the job corridors are, will we focus on secondary markets? Absolutely. The deal's got to make sense for us to get involved in that, but we are looking in secondary markets now for additional growth tiers. And that leads me into growth in what our overall goal is. Listen, if we're not growing faster than every other national out there, we're not doing our job. And that's what we've been tasked to do. And with that comes the acquisition of land, right? So, we've got huge metrics that we need to hit. And when you're growing on huge metrics at 50-some thousand deliveries, which we're doing on any given year right now, that's a big number. And even if you spread that across the nation, it's a large feat to accomplish. So we are always looking for ground. There's nothing we're going to shy away from. There's no deal structure we're going to shy away from. We just need to have that conversation. So please absolutely keep us in mind on any type of deal structure that you guys are thinking about. It kind of brings me down to the overall perspective of where the market is right now. Listen, it's a great market. It's, interest rates are low. Inventory is extremely low, even from a new home perspective. And then when you get into resales, it's bleak. There's a number of reasons I think that it's bleak for now, but the fact of the matter is it is. And there's really nothing for these home buyers to purchase other than new homes. So it is increasing the amount of sales that we're achieving on a month-over-month basis, and it's also increasing sales price. Now, with that comes cost. Just like inventory, may be bleak. When that happens, we have to build more homes, and our supplies are really getting impacted right now. And I'm sure many of you know, as developers, it's probably running across the board, right? You guys are dealing with some of the same cost issues that we're dealing with, but it's a real issue right now, and we're dealing with it, and we can probably weather that storm better than most because we have national contracts and a lot of suppliers across the nation. But costs are steadily increasing, but we're willing to offset that, or we're able to offset that with sales price increases right now, which is helpful. So I'll jump down to kind of the size and types of projects that we are interested in pursuing. And really, from a size perspective, there's a lot of different ways I can answer this question, but I'll try to keep it general and in a few bullet points. Anything within the Beltway or A plus markets, we're generally looking for 50 plus lots, right? Anything in what we consider secondary markets, we want that job to be bigger, to be worthwhile. And the reason behind that is there's generally not a satellite community, which we're doing in close proximity in those locations, that we can sell out of or that we can get started out of. So it makes it more difficult as we're penetrating new markets. It's got to be a big enough asset for us to get some ground and some running room in. Now, deal structure also comes into play, right? So if we're looking at finished lots, I may be willing to accept a smaller deal that we're not having to put our development team in and a lot of resources to, where we can just construct vertical construction homes, right? So A plus markets, that number may come down to 40. And in secondary markets, that number may come down to 50 under those structures, or 75, right? But now let's talk about what's too large for us. Nothing. We like large scale communities. We operate off of them. We feed off of them, and we bring success to them. In Maryland, we bought a few years back, probably the largest deal that's occurred in Maryland in 25 years, which was St. Charles, which will allow us to build up to 8,000 home sites, assuming that we had the ground mass to get there. Now, it's still to be determined if we do. As we're designing that, we're only a quarter of the way through design of that entire community. So that's a massive deal for us. We're doing 200 plus home sites deliveries out of there a year. We're hoping to get that up north of 300. We will see. And we have many other, large scale operations. We built out Tanyard Springs, Tanyard Cove, every satellite community around Tanyard, and the northern Glen Burnie area, which was a major engine that we worked off of. We've done Beach Creek, which was 500 plus lots. We have Plantation Lakes, which was a couple thousand lots, and the list goes on. So nothing's too large for us to look at, and we can be very creative on deal structures, and I'll get into that a little bit as we get further down the list. Primary lot types that we're interested in purchasing or being a part of. The world's changing. So my answer a couple years ago is definitely different than my answer today. But I will tell you, our primary core is townhomes, single family detached homes, right? Now, we've ventured into the active adult market in a very big way. We've got 1,000 lots under entitlement down at St. Charles. We'll be coming out with an active adult community there. We've got age-targeted communities that we've targeted and acquired in Delaware on a very large scale. I think we're ranked number 3 in Delaware right now. And a lot of that's occurred over the past, call it 12 months, 13 months. We've acquired a lot of ground out there. So active adult markets and age targeted markets are a huge deal today. And, you know, if we pause there and think about that for a second, because we're all dealing with these school moratoriums in some of our primary core markets, don't shy away from active adult possibilities. If the schools aren't open, if there's a way to get an active adult site going, we should be thinking about that. There's not enough. I can count on one hand the number of large scale communities that anyone can drive to from an active adult perspective in our region. So obviously we're not providing enough home sites and enough developments to fit that buyer segment. We should absolutely be thinking about that. But with active adult comes a number of other types of product types or lot types that we'd be looking for. Villas, right? Which are essentially master down townhomes. We'd be looking for that product type. Master down singles, which are generally deeper than traditional singles. You know, they can get up to 70 feet in depth. So you got to be thinking about that when you're designing sites. What else? Next generation products, a little bit wider than a traditional active adult single family detached home, but it's a home that lives within a home, which means you could have an aging parent, right? Young active adult with an aging parent that needs their own space to live within the home. You could have younger children that are coming back and living in the house temporarily that need to live with their older folks that are in an active adult community. And we are also looking into condos at this point in time, although it's not our primary choice. You know, that's separate. I'm talking about flats, separate from 2/2 units. And we can talk about 2/2s for a second. I see Jeremy Rudder on this call, and Jeremy's done some 2/2 projects with us, which have been a huge success for us in the past. But that's kind of a separate and distinct product from a condominium flat. So, you know, we are designing market rate condominiums at this point, and we are designing, or we're looking at age targeted or active adult condominiums. The markets have to make sense. They need to be A+ markets in order to bring that product in, because it's very expensive to build. So the same thing is true for 2/2 units. You're not going to go into a $300,000 price point area to high $200,000 price point area and offer 2/2s. It doesn't make sense. We can't build them and make money. So we need to be thinking, at least in this region, I should say. So we need to be thinking about the price points that we're able to hit when we're introducing those product lines. Okay, so I think that gets me through the primary lot types. Matt, am I missing anything, or is there anything you want to chime in on at this point, or am I pretty much covering everything?
You covered, yeah, everything that we would be interested in buying, or communities that we've done.
Okay, good. So types of acquisition deals that we'll entertain. Listen, I'll challenge you. Think of a new one, right? We have the ability to think outside of the box. That's what separates us from everyone else. I mean, every traditional deal type that you guys can think of, we're doing, and we're actively doing right now, right? So finished lot options all over the board, right? Bulk purchase finishing fee deals. We do them all the time, right? We were a critical part of inventing that deal. So, we absolutely, it fits within our purchase strategy. Self-development deals. We do a lot of self-development deals. Keep in mind, we want to be focused in kind of primary markets when we're looking at those types of deals. And we'd like them to be larger than smaller, so that when we dedicate our land development team to that deal, it makes sense. It's a fairly large operation, right? And then what other types of deals make sense? If it's a big deal, what kind of funding do you need from a development standpoint? How can we help you? How can we get you money, right? Can we get it through the form of a deposit? Is there other ways we can get you that money? Do I need to buy more home sites up front with a little bit of a reprieve on the back end so that I can get you the initial capital influx that you need? There's nothing we won't consider if it makes sense, right? So we're in it to make money. You're in it to make money. We don't think one way and it's either that way or we're out. We will stop to create something specific for each and every deal if it makes sense.
Jeff, could I back you up on that if I might? Because I think that's something that everybody, all developers really interested in. So much capital has to be laid out up front, and with sureties and bonds and letters of credit. Could you go over in a little bit more depth than you just did on how you can help developers with the financing that's required?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about a finished lot deal, and then we'll kind of break it into each a couple of deal structures that may help with that issue. Just talking about a finished lot deal to make it easy, right? We have no problem releasing money to you to help with the entitlement expenses, engineering expenses, and initial development cost expenses, right? So that's one way. And I can be lenient on the amount of deposits that we can release. And I don't, every deal is deal specific. So it's based off location and everything else. But again, we have flexibility there where others may be capped at 9.9%. I'm not. And I don't have problem releasing more money than that if it makes sense. Also, we could buy a number of lots up front to help with that initial influx of cash that you need to put into the ground up front to get your cash flow back and running, right? And potentially give us some reprieve to get up and going, get our models built, get sales open, and then start taking down lots at a later date to help us work through the inventory that we already purchased. That's one way to get over some of those hurdles on a traditional finished lot option. And why would you do a finished lot option? You're going to get the most money. You're going to get the most profit out of a finished lot option than any other type of deal structure. What's another deal structure we'll do? Bulk purchase finishing fee deal. This really helps with your lending concerns and your money concerns to get the ground developed. And how does this structure work? First, we put a deposit down, which will help you through engineering, entitlements, etc. Once you get the property fully entitled and engineered, we close. So we close on the property as if we were self-developing or at final plan approval, right? And then we generally close for a portion of the purchase price. So it may not be what you would sell a land development deal for bulk, but we will close for a large amount of money, which will give you an initial influx of cash to help with your acquisition and the initial money you need for development. And then we will fund you the remaining purchase price over time as you hit development triggers through the deal. In addition to that, we'll have a separate lot finishing agreement where we're paying you on a per lot basis to finish and deliver us finished lots back. So really, we're playing with cash to get you the money you need to develop the property, hopefully to avoid a development loan altogether. But we need to come together as a group to discuss what that looks like, because only you know the financial aspects of your deal, right? So we kind of got to open that up, and we can get creative enough to get you the money you need so you can hopefully avoid that development loan or a substantial portion of that development loan, if that makes sense. Did that answer the question, David?
Yes. That was a great answer. I mean, really the issue that the last recession kind of flushed out a lot of the merchant developers, and they're now generally smaller firms or individuals. The issue, and there are very few banks, since the various regulations got toughened up that'll make, acquisition and development loans. And I think what you've said and how flexible Lennar can be in almost acting like the bank and providing the capital that you need to develop a property by being creative, being a little out of the box, and being flexible, I think is really important. And I hope everybody noticed. And
Absolutely.
congratulations to you for really developing some of these techniques.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we honestly, in a lot of ways don't have a choice, right? We want to be the leading builder that developers come to. We need to be the leading builder that developers come to. We've got a massive pipeline to fill. And listen, we structure deals in a way where we're not walking away. We don't do that. I mean, you can beat down the streets and you can see from my time here in Maryland and on the Virginia side, we haven't walked away from a deal. We don't walk away from deals. That's not what we're here to do, is to build, is to build out communities, is to build homes and deliver those homes. And that's what we need to do. So we have no benefit from walking away from deals. Now with that, we do the appropriate due diligence. And we work very hard on the front end to make sure that we're not in a position where we ever need to do that. And honest to God, listen, the other thing to say is we also don't put offers out on the street that we can't live up to. My group does not do that. We do not have time to waste. If you think about, I haven't gotten into this from a Maryland perspective, we'll do 1,200 deliveries this year in the Maryland division. We'll do north of 1,000 in the Virginia division. So, and that number has to grow consistently. So if you figure what that looks like from a deal flow perspective, means we generally need to be doing 11, 12, 13, 14 deals in each division each year. And that's a lot of deal flow. And that's assuming that you're getting 100 lots out of each deal. And we all know that doesn't exist in this market on a every case basis. So it's even more than that. When you start to factor in the 75, 50 lot deals. Do I have time to put a deal under contract that's not going to make it through investment committee and get approved? The answer is no. And it doesn't happen. I mean, when we get a deal under contract, we know that we can move forward with that deal. Now, something comes up in due diligence that we didn't expect, or that, no one saw coming, including the developer, then that's a different issue. But generally,
well, let me jump in on quite Jeff, if I could. Let me jump in on a question there. You do the Green Book, right? Don't you? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, it's Green Book. It's the same thing as what everyone else would call a feasibility book.
Okay. What is so you and the other national merchant builders do a feasibility book? I think you guys call it a Green Book. It goes down to headquarters. What are they looking for? What kind of rate of return are they looking for on their capital? And what kind of risk or lack of risk are they willing to take?
That's a very hard question to answer, because I will tell you, it all depends on the deal, right? How large is the deal? Where is the deal located? What type of structure is the deal? All of those metrics change based off of those aspects. Now, I will say at a high level, we generally have more flexibility with our metrics than most of our competitors, right? Because we're hungry for land. So I know 9 times out of 10 that if I'm pushing my metrics, that I should be in the lead, as long as I'm evaluating everything else in the market correctly. From a risk perspective, David, you asked, what risks are they willing to take?
I was inarticulate. Do you have a feasibility checklist that goes with the Green Book, and they want to see that all the boxes are checked?
Oh yeah. So we require a pretty substantial amount of due diligence. Every other national does the same thing. I think I hold us to a very high standard for our underwriting and our due diligence aspects. There's really nothing that, at least I say this, but I learn something new every month, it seems like, in this business, even at this stage. But we pretty much dealt with every situation and we always work through it. If I am working on a piece of property and we pull an environmental report and there's an environmental issue, do we walk away? No. We regroup with the developer and we say, here's how we can handle this. And we've got the best professionals in this industry who will tell us the step-by-step approach to take this and get it to the finish line. There's no situation where I want to walk away from a deal. Every situation, I want to get the deal done, right? I mean, that's my motivation. So we're going to figure out a way if that way exists. And when you talk about risks that the company is willing to take, it's our job from a divisions standpoint to identify the risks, mitigate the risks, and have solutions for the risk. So, and that comes in a variety of different aspects, but during our due diligence efforts, we're going to figure out what everyone else is going to figure out, right? And we're going to quantify that risk and we're going to bring a solution to that risk. And we're going to come up with a game plan that involves the developer. If this ever exists. I mean, listen, a lot of deals, these issues never come up, specifically on the Delaware side. The grounds, you're buying farms out there, it's very easy ground. Here it gets a little bit more complicated because we're doing a lot of infill projects. But what I'm trying to say is we will identify the risk, we'll bring solutions. We've got the team in place to get that done and do that, to get the deal across the finish line. So let me keep running through this. We talked about some of the creative structures. I think David hit on that to help with developer financing, new areas of business that Lennar's focused at. Listen, I mentioned this before about our executive level and these guys being deal junkies and land being a primary focus. Listen, I'm telling the truth there. These guys not only think that way, they think about other lines of business that they can bring into our company to help us grow. And understand the constraints that we're dealing with across the nation from a pipeline perspective, and how are we going to continue to grow at rates that we need to grow at on such a large number. Well, we've got to bring in new ideas and we've got to think outside of the box. So with that said, we have a multifamily group, which is one of the largest multifamily groups in the nation now. They mainly focus on urban areas. So they want to be near transit, oriented developments, cities, things of that nature. Now, for the right deal, they'll absolutely look at entertaining other areas. That's just been their primary focus to date. And recently, we've had a large investment on what we're calling single family rental opportunities. So this is a huge deal and a huge opportunity for the street. So I want to make sure that I clearly describe this. What this means is, we have a group now that will work with the divisions to perhaps purchase portions of our development and make those single family rentals. So you'll have townhouse rentals and you'll have single family home rentals within an existing market rate community. So that's easy. We control that asset. We can break off a portion of our development for them. Or, and here's the key thing, if we're looking at a very large development, call it 500 plus home sites, right? Where every other builder is going to come into you and they're going to try to get absorptions. You've diversified product. We've done everything we can to get that absorption rate up, to get you out of the asset quicker. We'll get you out faster than that, because we'll branch off 200 of those home sites to our single family rental group, and we'll sell the remaining 300 as market rate. And we'll get out of that community twice as fast as any competitor that you're looking at the deal with. So it's a value add to large scale communities that we're looking at. And then here's the other aspect that we can look at. Suppose you guys are building you want to be involved in the rental game. And we've got a couple of these projects working even within the Maryland division right now, where you control the land or you own the land. You're willing to develop the property, right? We'd be willing to allow you to throw the ground in, right? And we will come and we will build your home for a construction sale fee and deliver that home back to you never take title to the ground, and allow you to hold that asset as a rental, right? Or help you hold that asset as a rental. What benefit do we add? Well, we have national contracts, and I find it hard that many subcontractors can build a home for what we build it for, right? So obviously we have to have our margin in the deal, but even from that perspective, so does that general contractor. And from a construction cost standpoint and speed standpoint, and knowing the partner that you're working with, I'm not sure there's any better group to build those rental homes for you. So just think through that, because that's another line of business that we are absolutely after. And that brings me to due diligence items. I'm checking time here to make sure I'm not behind. And Matt, I'll let you jump in with me here at a certain point. So due diligence items for developers to think through when you guys are putting a deal under contract. And the reason I bring this up, because it's important for you to know what we're going to look at, right? So that you can look at it in advance and make sure you flushed out any issues. So some of the very high level items, obviously environmental reports, right? We're going to pull them. There's nothing we're not going to find. It's better to be upfront and open and let us help you resolve the issues than to not, portray everything that's going on, right? Geotechnical reports. We're going to do geotech tests, even on finished lot opportunities. We'll do those in advance to understand the dirt that we're working with. And again, we have every solution under the sun to figure out issues as they may come up. Wetland reports. We'll do a complete wetland analysis. Listen, if there's an expired JDE, it's generally an issue. Let's make sure we have the jurisdictional delineations updated, unless there's a valid reason why it doesn't need to be. Floodplains. If there's floodplains on the property that are impacting our lots, generally an issue. If there's new floodplain maps, let's make sure we're going to get the low Mars and everything else that go along with that. These are just some of the issues that we run into. RTEs, environmental, our endangered species studies. We're going to do one, right? Let's make sure we pulled the trigger on that. And you guys make sure you're not running into any issues there. Matt, what else am I? Oh, surveys, Alta surveys.
Survey.
So we're going to do an Alta survey on every single transaction that we ever do. A lot of guys do boundary surveys. We will do an Alta survey. We are worried about any easements that may impact our home sites and our ability to build. And those are what the Altas are going to pick up. So a boundary survey, while it's helpful, and a lot of developers do that, that's fine. That helps you understand if there's any encroachments or any adverse possession claims or anything like that going on. But we will also perform an Alta survey on top of that. And then I'm going to let Matt jump in here for a second, because I may be missing.
Yeah, and then also depending on where you are in the engineering process, we would be doing a thorough review of the engineering plans, trying to understand where you are in the entitlement process, and trying to identify any offsite improvements, easements, things like that, that could trip up our team as we work through development and building homes.
Hey, and Matt, I'm going to piggyback off of that for a second. It brings me to building our building foot matrices, right? So our buildable footprint matrices. So what we're looking for is, does our building footprint fit? And a lot of times what's happening is developers are running down the path with getting plans fully baked without having a builder in unison with them. And that creates issues. So I would recommend getting a builder's feedback. Ask for their hold down plans as you guys are designing grading plans, right? Ask for their building footprints as you're designing getting final plan approvals in place. Because what happens is, once those grading plans are baked, And once you've got those footprints on and we've got to go back and unwind that, it creates a whole host of issues that we don't need to run into. We can give you feedback now and you can get those grading plans set up in a way so that the site balances as we construct our homes. It's worth coming to us now for feedback. And honestly, listen, that doesn't mean Lennar has to do the job, right? And generally speaking, most of our hold down parameters are the same across the board. And if they're not the same, they're damn close. So it's worth getting feedback from us. Matt, anything else that I'm missing there?
We touched on, I mean, obviously if there's a site specific, a noise study or something like that. If you're near an airport, you're near a interstate or something like that, there's probably some other, depending on where you're located or historical uses of the property, there might be another study or something like that. But I think we've touched on, pretty much the standard menu for every single, the minimum we would use to study a property.
Yeah, another thing that has jumped off the board at us a couple times, and now specifically as we're dealing with infill sites, is MAA contours. Yep. So your Maryland Aviation Administration contours and flight noise and things like that. So just keep that in mind if you're within the path of airlines or a close airport within close proximity.
And the crane permit is another one. If
right.
you're within, close to Martin State or BWI or even a general aviation airport, we've had to go get crane permits in close proximity to those types of airports.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we touched on that. Matt, I want to kind of hand it over to you for a second here to run through some of the development items that you have on the top of your mind.
Yeah. Jeff said in the beginning, we were a partner all the way through. Land development. What I like about being in the land development department is it's really like a cradle to grave, being involved in the job. We help Jeff up front with the studies, evaluating the property, the engineering, the entitlements, everything like that, and then we are sort of a shepherd of the community all the way through. Passing it off to our forward planning department, helping our forward planning department pass it off to the home building and construction team, and then we're coming in at the end and doing some of the bond release work and kind of closing out the job at the end. So you really do get to see the job from inception all the way through the full build out. And it's a really rewarding, part of the job. And then community development profile, Jeff also touched on this one, what's too big and what's too small. We're operating in a lot of different jurisdictions all throughout the mid-Atlantic, anywhere down from, 50 lots all the way up to, Plantation Lakes, which is 2,500 lots over in Delaware with a 18-hole golf course that we built, 22,000 square foot clubhouse, lots of pool, smaller clubhouses, pools, gyms, all that stuff kind of flows through the land development team. And even up to St. Charles, where we're building a small city down in Charles County, 8,000 lots, there's school sites, there's a minor league baseball stadium. So it's a really rewarding, to do anything from, small sticks and bricks development to, a full community with, some really cool amenities and things like that.
So David, I'm going to open it up to you if you have any questions.
Well, yeah. Let me ask some questions. In Maryland, what's the most difficult county to work in, and what's the easiest in your experience?
Yeah.
Anybody can jump in on that one.
I don't know that any are the easiest, but we'll say the toughest counties we're dealing with right now, just because of the moratorium issues and things, is Howard County and Anne Arundel County. By far, it's Montgomery County is always a challenge, but at least they're allowing us to build homes and develop property out there right now. So it's tough sledding in Howard and Anne Arundel. That's why I kind of diverted to the age targeted or active adult developments, because I do believe there's opportunity in those counties for that right now. And I'm not sure that there's enough focus from the home building group, to get those developments coming out of the ground.
All right, let me ask you another loaded question. I'm sure somewhere in Lennar, there's some economists. What do you see for right now we're in not a red hot market, we're in a white hot market. What do you see for the future? What are they telling you?
Listen, no one's telling me anything, but I'm not sure. They're telling me to grow. So that's the only thing I hear multiple times a day. So
nobody's saying cut off in 2024 or something.
So there is no one's got the crystal ball. No one has the crystal ball. If you would have asked us where we were headed in March last year, no one would have imagined have been sitting here talking about a red hot market, right? So no one knows, and there's no good way to answer that question except the actual facts that exist in the market today, right? You've got some of the lowest interest rates in history. What does that mean? That means that you have extreme purchasing power in the market, right? You've got a whole generation of folks that have been renting, right? And that are now sick of their apartments and want to get into new homes. And even that townhouse is a big step up from that 600 square foot apartment, right? So there's a lot of things, and there's a generation coming behind them that's going to do the same thing. So, and you've got some of the lowest inventory levels. Now, does that hold up? I don't know. You guys answer that question. There's some things leading those inventory levels, but it's not for me to speculate on. So all of the arrows are pointing in a positive direction for home building. Obviously, we've got our supply issues that we've got to resolve. And hopefully that frees up as things start to loosen up in the economy from this pandemic perspective. So that's the best way that I can answer the question, David. I don't know. I'm dealing with the market as it is today, and we're trying to adjust on a daily basis. It's a very strong market right now.
It sure is. It should only continue. If anybody who's listening in has any questions, would you put them in the chat box? And here in the studio, we have a question. Ed Cohane. I'll repeat it because they might not be able to hear it.
Yes, Matt. Pre-COVID, the policy, everyone was going to a micro-size unit, apartments, things in that fashion. With post-COVID, with people working from home, are the units looking at coming out bigger so that they can have office space inside their homes and things in that fashion?
Could you hear the question?
I did, and you're talking more from a multifamily perspective, correct?
Well, multifamily, townhomes. I mean, even the townhomes pre-COVID were getting smaller and smaller, it seemed. But now I'm just wondering, are they going to start becoming larger? Are people looking at that third room?
Well, let me rephrase the question a little bit. Has the pandemic changed the demand in the marketplace? What are you saying?
I believe so, and I'll try to answer his question directly. I think a lot of what you're seeing. Listen, we made a strategy from the Maryland region perspective to get heavily involved in townhomes, and we did that 8 years ago. And our portfolio was like 70-30 for years, townhomes to singles over the past 8 years, and that proved out to be a very big win for us. Because I think a lot of what we're seeing are folks leaving the city, the younger millennials that were holding on to that city atmosphere. And I don't know, that dried up a little bit, right? It's very tough to have a city atmosphere when you can't go to a restaurant. So, and it's very tough to work from an apartment when all of the amenities that you're living there for no longer exist. And you're now starting to have children who are crawling around your feet when you're trying to do your job. Right. So a lot of that is pushing them out to the suburbs. And that townhouse, like I said, again, and I don't know that a 1,800 square foot townhouse versus a 2,200 square foot house is the breaking point. It's the additional bedrooms. It feels like a mansion compared to some of the apartments that these folks are living in. So yes, I do believe that they're headed out to the townhouse market And I'm not sure that the smaller 20-foot townhouse isn't appetizing enough because it's a major change from where they're coming from. And some are focused on larger homes. And at that point, they're going to go to single family detached, right?
Carrie, do we have any questions in the chat box? Carrie?
David, I don't see any, David.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, Kim Curran has a question.
Well, I know that there's a bigger analysis that comes, they can see me. Well, I know there's a bigger analysis that comes into it, and I appreciate the mentality of wanting to make a deal work. Would you say that there are any non-starters on a due diligence checklist that would completely take you away from a piece of property? Or if there are none, what would you say are like some of the top headache items that really make you cautious when entering in a deal on a property?
So it's a good question. So let me start with environmental, right? That's probably our largest concern in any national home builder's largest concern on any piece of property. So if the property is environmentally impacted, we are going to want that property to be free and clear of any environmental issues prior to taking ownership of it. And so that is probably the major focus that you need to have. Now I'll talk about some burdens that can be very impactful on a deal. Uncontrolled fill, right? There's another one. A lot of these infill properties have been touched and have been touched multiple times. So what is the dirt that's been brought in? What are we dealing with? We're going to figure that out. So if you've got 10,000 yards of uncontrolled fill, that's not a major issue. If you've got 300,000 yards of uncontrolled fill that we got to get rid of, we got to dig down 30 feet to get there, that's a bigger issue. So geotech is probably another place that's worth spending some money to figure out if there are any issues. Wetland permits, things like that. Those are showstoppers. Easements, offsite. And we're going to get into a deal where our sewer is not 100% guaranteed for the site, right? That's tough. And does it have to be done day one? No, but is it going to be a condition of closing? Very likely. So just major showstoppers from that perspective, that it's not a showstopper. Everything can be figured out and we're willing to help, but those are some of the major issues to focus.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Kim, I know we have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. Jeff and Matt, thank you. That was a wonderful and informative presentation. Thank you so very much for joining us today. For those who want continuing education certificates, they'll probably go out tomorrow, Thursday at the absolute latest. Our next session will, we've heard a couple times today about the importance of environmental issues and getting those identified, understood, and resolved. And our next session will be 2 weeks from today on May 18th. And our speaker will be Mike Powell from Gordon Feinblatt. Truly he was former principal counsel at the Department of the Environment and one of the finest environmental attorneys really in the nation. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Thanks again, Matt and Jeff. Wonderful presentation. And I hope to see everybody in 2 weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.